December 28, 1943. Monte Sammucro, Central Apennines, Italy. Snow does not fall here the way it does in Canada. It does not drift or glide or whisper. It arrives like an ambush, thrown sideways by mountain winds that can tear the breath straight out of a man's throat. On this night, at 2:17 a.m., the Apennine Ridge is a black and white battlefield of blowing ice and the groaning of pine trees bent under the weight of a winter no Allied planner had expected. Private Gerald, Jerry, Laflamme, 2nd Battalion, Royal Canadian Regiment, crawls the final meter to the rocky ledge and plants his mittened hand on stone so cold it feels alive. Snow swirls past his goggles. His eyelashes are covered with white frost. His Ross bayonet, attached to his Lee Enfield No. 4 rifle, is frozen to its holder from the last patrol. Somewhere in the valley below, the Germans are listening. They always are. Crack, a branch snaps in the tree line. Not from weight, from temperature. Tonight it is 38 degrees Celsius and falling. Jerry presses himself deeper into the rocks, pulling his scarf up to his ears. The wind howls across the ridge, dragging sheets of ice in rattling waves across the stones. Far to his right, a flare glows weakly from Hill 6 and 5, marking the most forward group of the Hastings and Prince Edward Regiment. Their position is half buried under wind-blown snow. Behind him, the muffled thump of boots approaches. Lieutenant Douglas Mercer, face hidden behind a rim of frost, crouches low. "Patrol ready?" he asks. Jerry nods. "Sir." The men can barely feel their hands. Mercer's breath forms a cloud that turns instantly to ice dust. They won't feel them at -40 either. The Germans are testing us again. Regiment wants to know if they're moving machine guns toward the mule track. He pauses, listening to the wind. It's us or no one. The British Gurkhas can't push from their side until weather breaks. Another gust slams across the ridge, drowning the world in a roar of white noise. The mountains don't simply freeze, they erase sound, shape, and time. Jerry understands now why the local Italians call this stretch La Scina del Diavolo, the devil's spine. Still, the Canadians advance. The enemy watches from below. At the same moment, less than a kilometer downhill, in a timber bunker reinforced with scavenged stone, Oberjäger Hans Brenner of the 44th Hawk und Deutschmeister Jäger Regiment warms his hands over a flickering candle. The flame bends, nearly put out by a draft sneaking through cracks in the log walls. The cold has turned the bunker's interior into a cave of frozen breath, frost coating the ceiling like white fungus. He flips open his field diary. The page before him is stiff as cardboard. Die Canadier KD Mepeffen y Memniner die im Frost Gibran Sund. These Canadians, they fight like men born of frost. He glances at the field telephone beside him. Still silent. Higher command expects the Canadians to break tonight. They should have broken nights ago. No German unit, not even mountain troops, keeps pushing patrols forward in weather that freezes rifle bolts to steel blocks. Yet the Canadians keep coming, night after night, through blizzards that blind even the Jäger scouts. Hans shoves the diary back into his coat as his squad leader ducks into the bunker, stomping snow off his boots. Movement on the ridge. The man growls. North side, same as last night. Hans stiffens. Are they retreating? The squad leader snorts. Retreat. The Canadians. No, they're advancing in this hell. Advancing. He spits on the floor, and it freezes before it lands. The candle flickers. Outside, the wind shifts direction. The night is about to change. Canadians on the move. Lieutenant Mercer raises his mittened fist. The patrol of 6 halts. Snow sweeps past their shapes, turning them into ghosts against the moonlit ridge. Their boots sink into drifts, so deep the surface cracks like thin glass. Corporal Paul Delaney, voice muffled by his balaclava, whispers, "Sir." Rifle bolts are icing again. "Work them every 3 minutes," Mercer replies. "Keep them warm under your coat when you can." They press on. In the valley, German machine gun nests are black dots against the white. Between them lies a maze of frozen terraces, stone huts, and wild boar tracks half buried in snow. A faint clink echoes. Metal on stone. Jerry signals a halt. He drops to one knee, ear listening carefully. Over the howl of the wind, he hears breathing. Or is it fabric rustling? No, it's a shovel. Someone is digging. Germans strengthening a position. Mercer crawls beside him. Distance. 30 meters, maybe 35. Can't see a thing. Neither can they, sir. The patrol inches forward, using jagged rocks as cover. Snow explodes in tiny whirlwinds around them, stinging their faces like sand. Jerry edges his rifle up. The bolt grinds. Frozen solid. He swears silently and shoves it under his coat, pressing the metal against his ribs. The cold bites like a knife. Mercer raises 2 fingers. Advance to contact. The Canadians slide down the ridge, moving with silent teamwork, sharpened through months of mountain warfare. Their names, Laflamme, Delaney, Whitfield, Singh, O'Hara, disappear behind scarves and snow goggles. They are outlines now, shadows that breathe steam. A shape emerges ahead. A German sentry hunched over a snow trench, chopping ice from a weapon mount. Mercer signals. Delaney lunges first, tackling the sentry into the drift. Snow erupts around them. The wind swallows the sound. A brief struggle, then silence. They secure the trench maps, ammunition boxes, a field telephone line. Mercer breathes out quietly. This is it. They're moving heavy machine guns to cover the mule track. Brigade needs this information tonight. The patrol plants explosives on the ammo crates, then pulls back up the slope. Minutes later, muffled thuds roll across the ridge like distant drums beneath the storm. Below, in the German bunker, Hans Brenner stiffens. What was that? Explosions? The squad leader mutters, grabbing his rifle. Those Canadians again. Hans reaches for his diary. See A. Wren necked off. They do not stop. The ridge begins to kill. By 4:50 a.m., the storm gets worse. Winds reach 90 kilometers per hour. Needles of snow pierce exposed skin. The Canadians stagger along the ridge crest, leaning against gusts strong enough to knock over a mule. The temperature drops toward minus 40 degrees Celsius. Jerry's fingers have passed numbness. They feel carved from stone. His lips bleed where the cold has cracked them. Each step is a fight with a mountain that does not want him alive. Mercer calls a halt. The patrol forms a tight huddle behind a rock slab. We hold here until 5:30, Mercer orders. Then we rotate back to C Company lines. Delaney mutters, "If we don't freeze to death first." Mercer tries to grin, but his face won't move. We're Canadians. This is July back home. A ripple of exhausted laughter dies instantly as the wind slams into them again. Far below, the Germans assume the Canadians have pulled back. No unit could survive this ridge for more than an hour. Not even trained mountaineers. But the Canadians do not withdraw. They cling to the ridge like winter-born ghosts. The wind screams. Ice forms white masks on their faces. Breath turns to frost armor on their coats. And still they wait. Still they hold. Because the mule track below is one of the only routes German reinforcements can use. If the Canadians lose this lookout point, the entire 1st Canadian Infantry Division risks being surrounded. First light, first shock. At 6:15 a.m., a faint gray glow creeps across the horizon. Dawn is coming. Jerry forces his frozen binoculars open, brushing ice from the lenses. He scans the valley. Movement. Dozens of figures. German mountain troops advancing in columns, wearing white camouflage. Mercer breathes out frost. They think the storm killed us. He raises his arm. Positions. Rifles snap up. Bolts crack. Some frozen stiff. Some working only because the men kept them inside their coats. Below, the German column marches confidently, expecting empty heights. The Canadians open fire. Muzzle flashes rip through the gray. Echoes thunder across the valley. Germans stumble shocked, diving for cover. Their officers scream orders, stunned that anyone is still alive on the ridge, let alone launching an ambush. Hans Brenner, marching near the rear, drops behind a rock. Impossible, he mutters. They should be dead up there. A runner beside him gasps. They're Canadians. Hans closes his eyes. Of course they are. The mountain war truly begins. As German units spread out, the storm finally begins to ease, replaced by the brutal clarity of a winter sunrise. The Canadians, frostbitten, starving, exhausted, hold their ground with the grim determination of men who have survived something worse than the enemy. The mountain itself. Mercer reloads with shaking hands. Hold the crest. Do not let them flank. Jerry fires again and again, breath burning in his lungs. Every shot is a small act of defiance against cold, hunger, and fear. In the German diary that night, Hans will write, Der Kanadier ist kein gewöhnlicher Soldat. Ist ein Gescho PF des Winters. The Canadian is no ordinary soldier. He is a creature of winter. The ridge explodes in fire and ice, and the day is only beginning. December 29, 1943, 7:02 a.m., northeast face of Monte Sammucro. The storm has passed, but the cold has not eased. The Italians say the Apennines breathe in winter, breathing out storms and breathing in silence. This morning, the mountains hold their breath. Snow lies in carved waves across the ridge, ridges that moments ago were battle lines. Shell bursts and machine gun chatter still echo faintly down the valley. But on the heights, the only sound now is the crunch of boots and the ragged breaths of men who outlasted a night few believed survivable. Private Jerry Laflamme braces his Lee Enfield against a frost-covered rock and fires again at a German squad scrambling behind a stone hut. The rifle kicks stiffly. The bolt resists. Metal does not like to move at 40 degrees Celsius, but Jerry forces it anyway, muscles trembling from cold and exhaustion. Beside him, Lieutenant Douglas Mercer wipes ice from his goggles with a torn sleeve. They're regrouping, he mutters. God, they're determined. Corporal Paul Delaney, face wrapped in a scarf stiff as bark, grunts, Sir, so are we. Mercer's breath fogs instantly. The cold turns the fog to floating crystals. The Canadians continue firing. Below them, the German confusion grows. In the valley, Oberj. Hans Brenner runs between boulders, heart pounding, breath searing his lungs with each inhale. Snow fountains erupt around him as bullets strike. His ears ring from the chaos. His squad leader ducks beside him behind a stone wall. They're still there. He shouts over the gunfire. Those mad Canadians, they waited for us through that storm. Hans shakes his head in disbelief. We assumed no man could survive that ridge last night. The squad leader spits. Canadians aren't men. They're a winter disease. A soldier to their right mutters through chattering teeth. What kind of army goes forward in weather that freezes your rifles? Hans does not answer. He has seen more battles than he can count since Poland, France, and the Eastern Front. He knows bravery. He knows stubbornness. He has fought men who resisted to the last. But this is not normal. The Canadian fire is precise, steady, and confident, as if they had slept in warm barracks, instead of shivering on razor-edged rock slabs all night. Hans checks his carabiner 98K. The bolt is frozen again. He slams it against a rock, trying to break the ice seal. It doesn't budge. He curses under his breath. Above him, Canadians work their bolts with mechanical consistency. The difference is not skill, not training, not even morale. It is adaptation, and the simple fact that Canadian troops have fought winters like this since childhood. The Germans have not. Canadian lines hold, but at a cost. At 7:10 a.m., Sergeant Michael O'Hara of the Hastings and Prince Edward Regiment crawls over the ridge crest toward Mercer's position. Frost clings to his mustache like white fangs. "Sire," he gasps, "B Company says their rifles are starting to freeze shut. We've got frostbite cases piling up in the rock shelter." Mercer nods grimly. Stretcher bearers, too exposed. Germans have machine guns set up at the orchard. Any movement down the slope gets cut down. Jerry shifts beside them. "Sir, how long do we hold?" Mercer peers across the valley. The Germans are reorganizing. White, cloaked figures are spreading out, crossing the terraces, moving toward the ridge like wolves circling a wounded deer. The Canadians are outnumbered nearly 4-1. He speaks quietly, almost to himself. Long enough. The men understand. Long enough for the British battalions to strengthen their sides. Long enough for the mule supply convoy to get through. Long enough for the division artillery to move after losing 2 mules in the storm. Long enough to matter. A tactical decision in the snow. Mercer gathers the patrol into a tight huddle behind a jutting rock wall. Listen. The enemy is trying to surround us from the left. We pull back 30 meters to the secondary ridge. It's higher, narrower. Good field of fire. Delaney frowns. "Sir, that spot's colder than anything." Mercer shrugs. "Better cold than dead." Jerry manages a strained laugh. Not sure there's a difference at this point. O'Hara taps his boot against a rock. "Sir, most of the lads can't feel their feet." Mercer's eyes soften. "I know, Mike, but if we fall back to the wrong point, they'll overrun the mule track, and we'll lose the entire line." His words are not dramatic. They are matter of fact. Spoken like an officer who knows the mountain is trying to kill them faster than the Germans. "Grab your gear. We move on my signal." The withdrawal under fire. At 7:27 a.m. Mercer signals. The patrol rises from the snow like ghosts, moving quickly from rock to rock. Machine gun fire erupts instantly. Snow blasts upward around them. A burst cuts a line into the ridge just behind Jerry's boots. "Down." Mercer shouts. They throw themselves into a trench carved by wind rather than engineers. Snow floods over them. Jerry wipes his goggles. But the moisture freezes instantly. He rips them off and blinks against the cold air. His eyelashes freeze shut for a moment, tiny needles stabbing his eyelids as he pries them apart. Delaney hauls himself beside him. "Jerry, you alive?" "Barely." Another burst of German MG-42 fire slices through the ridge. Its vicious ripping, cloth sound is unmistakable even in the howl of wind. Mercer peers over the ledge. They're rushing the hut. Move. The Canadians stagger, crawl, and slide through drifts, fighting the mountain as much as the Germans. Frostbitten fingers fumble at rifle slings. Boots slip on ice. Coats stiffen into boards. And yet they reach the secondary ridge, a miracle of will. On top of the secondary ridge and into the open. The new position is brutal. No shelter. No rocks large enough for cover. Just a narrow knife edge of packed snow, leading toward a stunted pine tree, twisted by wind into a tortured question mark. Jerry collapses behind the tree, chest heaving. "This is suicide," he mutters. Mercer kneels beside him. "Only if we give up before they do." O'Hara slides next to them, panting. "Sir, half the men can't fire. Bolts are frozen solid." Mercer clenches his jaw. "Then we use grenades and bayonets if we must." Jerry swallows hard. The men brace themselves. Below them, the Germans advance in organized wedges, white camouflage, dark helmets, rifles held low, moving across the snow like a creeping tide. Hans Brenner is among them, breath burning in his throat. "We flank them from the right," his squad leader orders. Hans nods, though his gut tells him this will not go as planned. The Canadians are cornered, but cornered animals fight hardest. The first assault. At 7:46 a.m., the Germans attack. Dozens of rifles fire together, crackling like dry branches snapping. Bullets tear into the ridge, sending bursts of snow into the air like tiny explosions. Mercer shouts, "Hold! Hold your fire." Jerry grips his rifle tightly. He works the bolt out of habit, though he knows it's barely working. The Germans close to 30 meters. Now. The Canadians unleash a devastating volley. The ridge erupts with muzzle flashes. Germans drop in the open, slipping down the slope. Officers scramble to reorganize the attack, but the Canadians fire with a determination that seems to defy nature itself. Hans dives behind a terrace wall, heart hammering. "They're demons," he breathes. "Frozen demons." His squad leader snaps. "Mountaineers trained for years for conditions like this. How are they still fighting?" Hans stares upward. "I don't know, but I know they won't stop." The mountain's judgment. The second German assault comes quickly, this time with mortars. The shells fly over the valley and plunge into the snow behind the Canadians, erupting in white fountains and thunderclaps. Jerry is thrown sideways, snow filling his mouth. His ears ring violently. Mercer drags him up. "Stay with us." Jerry coughs, spitting snow. "Sir, I'm fine." He isn't. His left cheek is numb, not from frostbite, but from the blast. The cold makes every injury worse. Another mortar blast sends them sprawling again. Shrapnel whizzes through the air like metallic hornets. O'Hara shouts, "Sir, if they get one lucky hit, we're finished." Mercer wipes blood, tinged ice from his lip. "Then don't let them get lucky." The Canadians counterstrike. At 8:10 a.m., with the German line momentarily stalled, Mercer stands tall. Taller than any man should in the open at this range, and throws his arm forward. "Fix bayonets." Jerry's breath catches, not because of fear, because of certainty. When a Canadian platoon fixes bayonets in winter, it means the fight has become personal. Metal clicks echo along the ridge. The Canadians surge forward. Hans watches in shock as shadowy figures charge through the snow, bayonets glinting in the weak daylight. "Impossible," he whispers. His squad leader shouts, "Back! Back!" The Germans fall back. They expected the Canadians to give up. Instead, the cold has transformed them into something frightening, relentless, primal, unstoppable. Hans writes later in his diary, "Der Schnee G. RT Ihnen." Sei ke memphen, alsmu rare ihr blut. The snow belongs to them. They fight as if it is their blood. The counterattack doesn't push the Germans far, but it buys time, vital time the division desperately needs. The moment the Germans hesitate, at 8:30 a.m., after 3 failed assaults, German commanders pause. Their radios crackle with confused reports. Canadians entrenched. Rifles still working despite freezing. Casualties rising. Advancing impossible without heavy artillery. Hans overhears an officer muttering, "They should have frozen to death." What are they? The question hangs in the frigid air, and for the first time in the battle, the Germans hesitate. On the ridge, Jerry slumps against the pine tree, teeth chattering violently. Mercer crouches beside him. "You good private." Jerry forces a smile. "Sir, I'm Canadian. I was born good in weather like this." Mercer laughs once, a short, exhausted breath. "Let's hope the mountain believes you." He glances down the slope. The Germans are falling back, only a few meters, but enough. The first crack in their confidence. The first sign the Canadians might survive this day. December 29, 1943, 9:02 a.m. The secondary ridge. Monte Sammucro. The sun climbs weakly above the Apennine peaks, a pale disk behind drifting curtains of frost haze. Its light provides no warmth, only brightness, a harsh reveal of the battlefield scattered across the terraces below. Frozen bodies. Shell impact scars in the snow that look like claw marks left by a giant beast. The wind settles briefly, long enough for men on both sides to hear their own breathing. That is when Jerry Laflamme realizes something amazing. The Germans are not advancing. For the first time since dawn, the enemy line is still. Lieutenant Mercer crouches against the crooked pine tree, frost thick along his collar. He scans the slopes with narrowed eyes. "They're reorganizing," he murmurs, but slower. Much slower. Corporal Delaney wipes a bloody nose with a mittened hand. The blood freezes instantly in the cloth. "Sir, maybe they're freezing up too." Mercer gives him a hard look. "They're mountain troops, Paul. They're used to this." Delaney shakes his head. "Not like us." Jerry glances down the slope. German figures move stiffly, shaking their rifles like clubs to free the frozen bolts. A machine gun team struggles to clear snow from their MG-42 barrel. Men stomp their boots, trying to restore feeling to their toes. They look fragile. For the first time today, Jerry feels a spark of something other than fear or exhaustion. Advantage. Inside the German command post, 100 meters below, hidden in a stone farmhouse, half collapsed from last year's shelling. Oberleutnant Rudolf Keibel slams his fist against a table littered with maps and frozen radio batteries. "Why are they still holding?" he shouts. "Why are they not dead? We saw the temperatures drop below 38 last night." A runner stammers, "Sir, the Canadians, they are firing as if it were autumn. Their rifles." "I know what their rifles are doing." Keibel snaps. "Ours are freezing shut. Why not theirs?" Hans Brenner stands quietly along the wall, helmet rim dusted with frost. He cannot feel his ears. He cannot feel his fingers, but he can feel the truth. "They are used to cold," Hans says softly. "More than we are." "Much more." Keibel turns. "Explain." Hans hesitates, but only for a breath. Many of them are from northern Canada. They grew up in towns where winter lasts half the year. They hunted in cold, worked in cold, lived in it from childhood. Another soldier adds bitterly, "We trained in the Alps." They were raised in something worse. Keibel exhales angrily, But there is a flicker of recognition behind his eyes, something he does not want to admit. So the cold is their ally. Hans answers quietly, yes, and our enemy. On the ridge, the Canadians stabilize. Mercer pulls out his map, holding the flimsy sheet against the wind with gloved hands stiff as boards. O'Hara, he calls. Sergeant O'Hara crawls over. Sire, we hold this ridge until the Princess Patricia's light infantry secure their left push toward the saddle. That could be 2 hours. O'Hara's eyebrows lift. 2 hours in this. Mercer gives a grim smile. Think of it as a winter picnic. Behind them, Jerry coughs violently, each breath producing frozen vapor. His stomach growls loud enough for Delaney to hear. You all right, kid? Jerry nods. Just hungry. Haven't eaten since before the storm. Delaney pats his pack. We'll share a ration when this calms down. If this ever calms down. The wind gusts, scattering powdery snow across their positions. It stings like glass. Jerry pulls his scarf tightly, but the cold seeps in anyway, going through layers, gnawing at bone. Yet they remain steady. The cold is no longer the enemy. It is the battlefield, and they are winning on it. The unexpected lull. At 9:44 a.m., German fire dwindles to occasional shots. A silence develops so unnatural for a war zone that Mercer slowly stands, scanning the valley. No mortar crews. He mutters. No machine gun fire. No flanking movement. Jerry peers through binoculars. They're sheltering behind the terraces. O'Hara snorts. In this cold, wouldn't blame them. Not just sheltering, Mercer says. Recovering. A moment passes. The meaning becomes clear. They need time to warm their rifles. Delaney's eyes widen. Sir, that could mean. A counterattack window. O'Hara finishes. Mercer nods. If we hit them now while they're fighting the cold, we might push them back to the orchard line. The idea is madness. They are exhausted, half frozen, low on ammunition. But tactical brilliance sometimes hides inside madness, and Canadians have a history of doing mad things very effectively. The decision. Mercer pulls the men into a tight circle. All right, he begins. The Germans are weakened. Their rifles are failing. Their morale is cracked. If we push now, they'll break. O'Hara frowns. Sir, we're barely standing. I know. Mercer says, but this is the best chance we'll get before they regroup. Jerry clenches his fists, fighting numbness. Sir, how far do we push? Only to the broken stone hut, Mercer replies. If we can take that position, we control the middle terrace. The Germans will have to fall back or risk being flanked by the Patricius. Delaney mutters, we're charging down into their fire in open snow. Mercer's eyes harden. They can't fire fast. Their bolts are frozen, and they don't expect a downhill assault. A long pause. Then Jerry says with a faint grin, Sir, I've always wanted to do something stupid before breakfast. Mercer grins back. Good, because this is very stupid. The charge begins. At 10:02 a.m., the order is given. Up, Mercer shouts. On me. The Canadians rise slowly, painfully, like old men forcing themselves out of chairs. They level their rifles, adjust their scarves, tighten their mittens. Then they descend the ridge. The snow is deep, waist level in some places. They stumble more than march, but momentum builds. They move faster. Their boots carve trenches through drifts. German troops look up in shock. Hans Brenner's jaw falls open. They're attacking. He shouts, attacking in this cold. Now? A machine gun team tries to swing their MG42, but the firing mechanism has frozen again. The gunner slams the side with his palm. Ice flakes off the receiver. Still jammed. The Canadians close the distance. 80 meters, 60-40. Mercer shouts, "Grenades!" O'Hara pulls the pin on a Mills bomb and hurls it. The explosion kicks up a fountain of white. Germans dive for cover. Jerry reaches firing range. He raises his Lee Enfield, works the bolt with a grunt, and fires. A German soldier tumbles backward. "Keep moving." Mercer yells. They surge through the terraces, half sliding, half running. Their breath thickens into clouds behind them, leaving ghostly trails. Hans fires blindly with a pistol, the only weapon still working. But it is not enough. The Canadians reach the stone hut, hand to hand in the snow. The battle becomes raw. Bayonets flash. Rifle butts swing like hammers. Men grapple in the snow, slipping, rolling, grunting. Jerry collides with a German soldier near the hut. The man lunges with a knife. Jerry blocks with his mittened hand, barely feeling the slice. He spins, slams the rifle stock into the man's shoulder, and drives him backward into the drift. Nearby, Delaney wrestles with a Jaeger trooper. O'Hara kicks another down the terrace. Mercer blocks a blow from a shovel-turned weapon and responds by smashing his rifle, but into the attacker's jaw. Snow becomes stained with streaks of red. Steam rises from bodies as warm blood hits sub-zero air. Hans Brenner finds himself face to face with a Canadian private whose goggles are iced over, giving him a monstrous blank appearance. Hans swings his entrenching tool. The Canadian ducks, swings back, and knocks Hans flat. Hans stares up at the sky dazed. He whispers, "Stop fighting. This is madness." The Canadian levels his bayonet, then hesitates. He lowers it. "Get up." The Canadian pants. "Go. You're done." Hans lies still, stunned not by mercy, but by exhaustion. The hut is now Canadian. The German collapse. As soon as the hut falls, the German line buckles. Officers shout conflicting orders. Troops fall back in messy groups. Some retreat toward the orchard, others toward the mule trail. A few simply drop behind terraces, too cold or exhausted to continue. Kaibo grabs his radio, shouting, "Pull them back. Regroup at the orchard line." But the cold has already broken discipline. By 10:28 a.m., the Germans abandon the middle terrace entirely. The Canadians, panting clouds of vapor, hold the hut. Delaney slumps against a wall. "Sir, we did it." Mercer nods slowly. "Yes." Jerry drops to his knees, chest heaving. "Sir, did we really just win a charge downhill against winter troops?" Mercer grins weakly. "You did. You all did." He looks across the valley as the Germans retreat. In their diaries they will write, "DKDLT variet uns. Die Canadier, KZ Mepten Wader, nach dem der Winter uns bereits besiegt hat." The cold betrayed us. The Canadians kept fighting after winter had already defeated us. On this ridge, in this cold, on this brutal December morning, the mountain became a weapon and the Canadians wielded it. December 29, 1943, 11:06 a.m. The middle terrace, Monte Sammucro. The stone hut, half collapsed, roof covered in a meter of frost, heavy snow, now stands as the most valuable piece of real estate for miles. Smoke rises from bullet holes in its walls. The doorway is black with scorch marks. Spent shell casings litter the ground in frozen arcs. Inside, Canadian soldiers sit knee to knee, breathing fog into the cramped darkness. Their coats steam faintly as the warmth of effort battles the cold's relentless grip. Jerry Laflamme leans against the stone wall, chest still heaving. The battle has taken something from him, breath, warmth, a slice of strength, but it has also given him something back. A sense of survival, a sense of defiance. He peers through a crack in the wall. Snow blows across the terraces like pale smoke, drifting over broken fields. German shapes move in the distance, small groups retreating, reorganizing, or carrying the wounded, but none are advancing. Corporal Delaney slides down beside him. Hell of a charge, kid. Jerry coughs hard, his breath turning to crystals in the air. Didn't have time to think. That's the trick, eh? Thinking just ruins things. Lieutenant Mercer enters the hut, shaking frost from his scarf. His face is carved from fatigue, eyes sunken, cheekbones sharply defined, lips rimmed with ice. But he stands tall. "We're not done," he announces quietly. A chorus of groans, half serious, half sarcastic. Sergeant O'Hara raises an eyebrow. "Sir, don't tell us there's more mountain left." Mercer spreads out his ice, stiffened map on a crate. The edges crackle like thin glass. German forces are regrouping at the orchard line. They'll counterattack. If they break through, they retake the terraces. Delaney mutters, and then they push us off the ridge entirely. Jerry asks, "Sir, how much ammunition do we have?" Mercer's silence is answer enough. The true enemy reveals itself. Outside, the wind picks up again, not as violently as the night storm, but with a sharpness that feels purposeful, like a reminder from the mountain itself that human conflict is only tolerated for so long. Snow sweeps across the hut in white sheets. A distant rumble echoes, not artillery, a creak freezing solid, cracking like a cannon shot as the water becomes ice. Nature is finishing the job the Germans could not. O'Hara crawls forward and taps the wall. Sir, the lads out back can't feel their fingers. Singh's boots are frozen to his socks. Whitfield's toes are white, and Laflamme, his lips are blue. Mercer nods grimly. Frostbite is hitting everyone. Already has hit everyone. O'Hara corrects. Now it's choosing who loses what. Jerry stares at his hands inside his mittens. The tips are numb, a deep, concerning numbness, not just cold but absence. He asks quietly, "Sir, if we stay here, will we make it?" Mercer looks at the cracked roof, the drifting snow, the sun barely visible through the haze. "We don't have to make it comfortably," he says. "We just have to make it long enough." German preparations for the counterattack. Down the slope, Oberja Brenner sits with his back against a stone wall, wrapping his coat tighter around his body. His breath forms long, slow clouds. His fingers are purple at the tips. He winces as he flexes his hands. His squad leader limps over. "Hands, you able to fire?" Hands shakes his head. Bolts frozen again. The squad leader holds up a flare pistol. "Use this. Better than nothing." Hands accepts it reluctantly. The metal is so cold he nearly drops it. Further ahead, Oberleutnant Kaibel rallies the remains of 3 platoons. "We attack as soon as the mortar crews rewarm their tubes," he orders. The Canadians are exhausted. Morale must be broken before midday. A soldier shivers uncontrollably. "Sir, we are exhausted too." Kaibel fixes him with a glare. "Then fight harder, unless you want winter to bury you here." Hands feels a knot tighten in his stomach. Winter already is burying them. And the Canadians, they don't seem afraid of it. The Canadians brace for the next wave. Back in the hut, Mercer finishes a short rest and crawls to the doorway. Snow blasts into his face immediately. He turns to the men. "Form defensive positions. 2 at each window. Rotate every 10 minutes. We need to save energy." O'Hara hands out extra bandoliers, though each contains only a handful of rounds. Jerry takes his position at the front window slit, peering through the blowing snow. His breath fogs the crack. He wipes it away with trembling fingers. He sees movement. White camouflage, dark helmets crawling. "Sir, they're coming." Mercer joins him. His jaw tenses. So soon. "Looks like 2 platoons," Jerry reports. "Maybe more behind them." Delaney mutters, "This is going to be bad." Mercer speaks calmly. "We hold. We rotate. We survive." He places a hand on Jerry's shoulder. "Steady your breathing." The cold steals strength from panic. Jerry nods, and the cold steals everything else from silence. The second assault begins. At 11:38 a.m., German mortars thump from the orchard line. Shells fly upward, trailing smoke that freezes into drifting strands. They land with muffled explosions in the snow near the hut. Chunks of ice and stone slam into the walls. A window slit collapses partly. O'Hara yells to the men, "Keep low." A shell lands closer. Too close. Jerry is thrown sideways, ears ringing. His vision blurs, white and red. "Jerry." Delaney shouts, "You good?" Jerry blinks hard, shaking off the dizziness. "I'm fine. A burst of machine gun fire cuts through the snow outside. Canadians duck. Snow sprays through the cracks. Mercer shouts, "Return fire." Jerry fires through his window slit. He sees vague shapes moving. He fires again. The recoil feels dull, like punching air. The Germans push forward, grenades in hand, slipping in snow. Some fall. Others rise again with stubborn determination. Hans Brenner advances with them, flare pistol held tight. He shivers with every step. He is not afraid of the Canadians. He is afraid of the cold that clings to him like a second skin. The fight at the wall. As the Germans close, the battle shifts from long range to brutal closeness. Jerry reloads his rifle, but the bolt jams halfway. Ice has frozen in the chamber. He bashes it on the stone wall. It refuses to budge. Damn it. Delaney tosses him a captured German pistol. "Use this." Jerry grips the Luger. Its metal is painfully cold. He fires through the window, hitting a figure 10 meters away. Outside, Germans reach the hut's walls, pressing against them for cover. Hands toss grenades into the snow around the building. O'Hara shouts, "Down." A grenade explodes, showering ice into the hut interior. Another explosion. More snow. The hut trembles. "Sir," O'Hara growls, "they're going to collapse this building on top of us." Mercer, crouched near the back wall, replies, "Then we meet them outside." Breakout. At 12:05 p.m., Mercer makes the call. All squads out the back window. Move. Delaney helps push men through the narrow opening. One at a time, boots slipping on ice. Jerry crawls out last, feeling the sting of cold slice across his face like a blade. Outside, the wind is howling again. The sky darkens. Snowfall thickens. Mother Nature has entered the fight again. Mercer points to a ridge of rocks 30 meters behind the hut. New position. Move. They scramble across snow-piled ground. Bullets snap past. A German grenade detonates behind them, knocking Jerry face first into the snow. His lungs scream as cold floods into them. Delaney hauls him up. "Come on, kid." "This way." They reach the rocks, sliding behind them just as another mortar round hits the hut. The stone walls collapse inward with a thunderous crack. Jerry watches in awe. "That would have killed us." Mercer nods. "Exactly why we moved." The turning of the tide. From their new position, the Canadians open fire again. The Germans, believing the hut occupied, Keep aiming fire at the wrong target for precious minutes. That mistake buys the Canadian's life. Hans sees the hut collapse and stares, shocked. They were inside, weren't they? His squad leader shakes his head. They're like ghosts. They vanish and reappear. Hans lowers his gaze. His hands shake. The cold is winning. The Canadians somehow are not. He whispers, "Why, won't they break?" The counterattack fails. As the snowfall gets worse and visibility drops, the German momentum fades. Men slip on ice. Rifles jam again. Officers shout in frustration as the Canadians, dug in behind sturdy rocks, continue accurate fire despite exhaustion. A mortar tube cracks from temperature stress. Another misfires. Supply runners collapse from cold. Keibel finally shouts through the radio, "Pull back. Shelter positions." We wait for a lull. The order spreads across the line. The Germans pull back slowly, reluctantly, defeated not just by bullets but by the cold. The Canadians' miracle. The Canadians watch as the German lines dissolve back into the orchard fog. Delaney slumps against a rock. They're falling back. O'Hara sinks to one knee. We lived through another one. Jerry breathes out a long, shaking breath. "Sir, is it over?" Mercer surveys the valley. His eyes soften, relief mixed with pride. "For now," he says. He looks at his men, frostbitten, battered, starving, half frozen. "But today, boys, we held." He raises his voice just enough for those nearest to hear. And the Germans now know what we always knew. Canadians don't fear winter. O'Hara laughs weakly. Winter fears us. The wind howls. Snow swirls. The mountain continues to breathe its icy breath, but the ridge remains Canadian. December 29, 1943, 4:42 p.m., rear face of Monte Sammucro. By late afternoon, the sky dims again, not from sunset, but from another curtain of storm clouds folding over the ridge like a massive dark blanket. The air thickens with icy mist. Snow begins to fall in lazy flakes, drifting downward as quietly as feathers from a ripped pillow. But underneath the softness lies danger. If temperatures fall another 10 degrees, anyone exposed could freeze in minutes. Jerry Laflamme braces himself against a boulder, watching the swirling snow as if trying to read its intentions. His face is raw, cracked from windburn. His mittens are torn. His lips are bloodied from biting down during the height of combat. Nearby, Corporal Delaney sits with his back pressed to a jutting rock, eyes half closed, but not asleep. No one sleeps in this cold. Not even exhaustion is strong enough to override the body's instinct to stay awake and alive. Sergeant O'Hara limps toward Mercer's position, boots crunching through refrozen drifts. "Sir," he calls. The lads are asking, "Are we staying the night?" Mercer rests against the rock wall, adjusting his helmet, which has frozen to the straps of his scarf. He looks around at his depleted squad, faces ghost-like in the dimming light. He sighs softly. "Yes," he says, "we stay." There are no groans this time, no sarcasm. The men simply nod. They have reached a point where complaining takes too much energy. Delaney mutters, "Thought I'd die fighting Germans." "Not winter." Mercer answers, "Winter is the deadliest army in this valley, and right now they are fighting it too." The German lines at dusk. Down in the orchard line, Oberge Hans Brenner forces his frozen fingers around a warm mug of Assat's coffee. The steam rises in pale wisps, each one precious. Around him, the shattered remains of his platoon are huddled in ruined sheds and stone bunkers. A field medic wraps cloth around frostbitten ears. Men beat their hands against their knees to bring back feeling. Others sit silently, staring at the ground, thinking about home, warmth, anything but this frozen ridge. In the command shed, Oberleutnant Kaibel paces, coat wrapped tightly around his body. Why didn't they break? He mutters. Why didn't they collapse like humans? Hans, standing in the doorway, answers quietly, because they live in cold. They know it. It is not new to them. Kaibel slams his fist against the table. But their weapons still worked. Their rifles still fired. Hans nods. They keep them under their coats, against their bodies. It melts the ice. Kaibel stares at him in disbelief. You're telling me they fight the mountain with their bodies? Yes, Hans replies, and the mountain obeys them. Kaibel sinks into a chair, rubbing his temples. Outside, the last light fades. The temperature drops again. A soldier suddenly screams in pain as frostbite consumes 2 of his fingers. Another shakes violently as hypothermia sets in. The Germans scramble to help, but they are too cold, too slow. Hans looks toward the invisible peak of Monte Sammucro and whispers, "Up there, they're still holding." A shiver runs through him, not from cold, from realization. The cold night vigil. Back on the ridge. The Canadians build makeshift windbreaks, pack mule blankets stretched over rocks, coats shoved into gaps, snow piled high to block gusts. The air tastes metallic, like breathing razor blades. Jerry's fingers throb painfully under his mittens. The ache means circulation is still alive, for now. Mercer walks the line, as officers must, checking each man face, hands, voice. In cold like this, a soldier can slip into unconsciousness without warning. He kneels beside Jerry. You holding up? Jerry breathes out, though his breath trembles. Cold's making my teeth hurt. Mercer forces a smile. That means you're still alive. Jerry chuckles faintly, though it turns into a cough. Sir, how much longer do we have to hold this hill? Mercer looks toward the valley, until relieved. When's that? Mercer doesn't answer because he doesn't know. The Germans test the line in darkness. At 6:13 p.m., after darkness swallows the terraces, shapes emerge from the orchard. Quiet, slow, careful. German scouts. Delaney spots movement through his frosted binoculars. Sir, they're testing us. Mercer crouches beside him, peering into the black. Snowflakes swirl in chaotic spirals, lit only by faint moonlight breaking through cloud gaps. They're checking if we froze to death, Mercer says. Jerry grips his rifle tighter. The Canadians remain silent, breaths controlled, rifles ready. A German scout approaches within 20 meters, peering through a slit in the snow wall. He whispers something in German, checking for signs of life. Jerry's trigger finger curls, but Mercer raises a hand. Hold. Let them doubt. Let uncertainty work on their morale. The Germans retreat. They believe the Canadians may still be alive, or worse, may be waiting for them. Fear spreads faster than frostbite, surviving the hours that want you dead. As night deepens, temperatures hit 42 degrees Celsius. The kind of cold that makes men see things that aren't there. The kind that convinces the mind that sleeping is safer than waking. Jerry feels his eyelids grow heavy. The snow in front of him blurs. His body begs for warmth, even if that warmth is imagined. Delaney nudges him sharply. Don't you dare sleep, kid. I wasn't. Jerry mumbles weakly. You were. I saw your eyes roll. Jerry breathes slowly, forcing himself upright. Thanks. O'Hara approaches, carrying the last of the rum rations. Small sip each, just enough to warm the throat. He hands the canteen around. They drink, It burns beautifully. Wish we had more. O'Hara mutters. Mercer replies, Too much and you'll freeze faster. They fall silent again. The hours crawl. The cold presses down like a weight. At 10:00 p.m., Jerry whispers, Sir, if we survive this night. I'm never complaining about winter back home again. Mercer replies softly, You earned that promise. A night enemy patrol makes the fatal mistake. At 11:41 p.m., faint sounds echo from the valley. Boots crunching snow, muffled German voices, metal clinking. Mercer stiffens. They're trying again. But something is different about this patrol. They are slower, hesitant. Their flashlights flicker from weak batteries. Their formations are loose. Jerry squints through the darkness. Sir, they look frozen. Indeed, the German patrol zigzags clumsily, slipping often. One man collapses. 2 others drag him upright. They're not fighting. Jerry observes. They're surviving, and barely. Mercer murmurs. They're checking if they can move forward. They can't. O'Hara adds. This cold is killing them. Delaney exhales. It's killing us too. Yes, Mercer says, but it kills them faster. The Germans withdraw, a broken, frost-bitten shadow of a force. The moment of recognition. Shortly after midnight, the storm shifts again. Wind drops. Snowfall lightens. Stars peek through ragged clouds. This is the first calm in nearly 20 hours. And in the quiet frost glow, the Canadians hear something unexpected. Jerry whispers, Sir, are those voices? Mercer listens. A faint murmur drifts on the wind. German voices speaking softly. A conversation not of officers barking orders or men preparing for assault, but something more serious. Hans Brenner's voice, though thin, carries enough for a few words to reach the ridge. Die Canadier sterben nicht. These Canadians, they do not die. Wir ko ninnen sie nicht brechen. We cannot break them. Nicht in dieser KLT. Not in this cold. Mercer's eyes narrow. They've accepted it, he says. Jerry asks, Accepted what, sir? That winter favors us. And then the real sentence reaches them, spoken quietly, spoken with a mix of resignation and awe. Sie sind wie Eis selbst. They are like ice itself. For the first time, the Germans acknowledge the truth. These Canadians were not merely surviving winter. They were mastering it. The final hours before relief. At 3:12 a.m., the rumble of distant boots echoes down the ridge. Canadian boots. The relief column arrives. Men of the Princess Patricia's, Canadian Light Infantry, led by Captain Somerville, faces flushed with effort in the biting air. Mercer stands to greet them, though his legs tremble. Lieutenant, Somerville says, We've come to take over. Mercer nods once. Thank God. Jerry sinks to his knees, relief hitting harder than exhaustion. Somerville looks at the ragged platoon frostbitten, pale, hollow-eyed. His voice cracks. Jesus, how long were you up here? Mercer answers softly, since the storm began. Somerville swallows. And you held against attacks in this cold. Mercer nods again. Somerville mutters, bloody miracle. Descending the ridge. As dawn paints the horizon with cold silver light, the exhausted Canadians begin their descent down the mule track. Medics meet them halfway, wrapping blankets around their shoulders, checking fingers and toes. Jerry limps beside Delaney, breath coming in icy puffs. We lived. Jerry whispers. Delaney chuckles softly. Barely. O'Hara joins them, wet till the brass hears this. They'll pin medals on the mountain itself. Mercer overhears and smiles faintly. Just get down in one piece, boys. That's victory enough. They continue downward. Every step takes them closer to warmth, closer to food, closer to life. The German diaries. Later that night, as the cold tightens its grip on the mountains, Hans Brenner opens his diary again. His handwriting trembles, not from fear, but from cold. He writes, "Wir griffen and ungriffen en, doch sie blieben." We attacked and attacked, yet they remained. Der Winter ht sie to 10 Solen, aber der Winter gehorchte ihnen. Winter should have killed them, but Winter obeyed them. Sie sind kein Jew, Halichen Soldaten. Sie sind etwas, das wir nicht Brechenko nennen. They are not ordinary soldiers. They are something we cannot break. He closes the diary, and the mountains accept the truth in silence. Epilogue: The ridge that would not fall. The Canadian stand on Monte Sammucro became one of the most quietly respected actions of the Italian campaign. Not because of the number of enemies killed, not because of the territory gained, but because they survived something both armies feared more than bullets or bombs, the mountain winter. And they won. Surviving frostbite, starvation, ice storms, rifle failures, collapsing positions, and relentless assaults, the Canadians proved what German diaries would echo for decades. Canadier brechen nicht im Winter. Canadians do not break in winter. The ridge was held. The line was secured. The division survived. And the legend of the men who fought at 40 degrees Celsius was born. If this incredible story of courage and survival moved you, please hit the like button and share this video. Tell us, what do you think gave the Canadians the strength to survive when even trained German mountain troops could not? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing, untold stories from World War II.